The Utah Jazz extended Will Hardy. It's the Hoops Nerd Show. Let's talk about it. All right, guys. So the Utah Jazz announced today, Ryan Smith, or as on Twitter, it's Ryan Qualtrics, announced that the Utah Jazz have extended Will Hardy through 2031. And I have to say, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but first off, this is a great move by the Jazz. Anyone who says anything about Will Hardy and it not being a good hire or Will Hardy not a good coach, those are people that aren't to be listened to. They are unserious people that don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes I'm amazed at some of the things I see online. People talking about Will Hardy and whether you should be doing something. Absolutely, you should be doing this. If you have watched a single game of this Utah Jazz team as currently constructed over the last 2 years, and what Will Hardy gets out of this team who had the capability of being the team with the worst record in the NBA, and if your idea of what this Jazz team should do is anything but hold on onto the coach, you probably should go be rooting for other things. Maybe go fishing, go play with little pebbles in the stream. I don't know, things that are on your level of thinking, because this type of coaching is remarkable from this Utah Jazz team. Will Hardy has been so good as the Utah Jazz head coach that he has altered the future of the Jazz just by how good he made the team. No one was expecting this Utah Jazz team to be as good as they were during that first season post Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They had the number one record in the Western Conference that first month of the season, and no one expected it. No one. Anyone who thought that was going to happen is lying. There was no expectation of that. Turning Lauri Markkanen into an all-star, something he had not done anywhere else. Winning games, creating a top 10 offense at times with that team before the Jazz had to make alterations quicker than they wanted so that they could get a lower pick, which ended up turning into Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh at the end. He was so good, he altered the plan. The next season, Utah had legitimate worries and wonders if they could make the playoffs. And they honestly were on a pace for a 500 level. And what they had to do to lose games was get rid of Kelly Olynyk and Simone Fontecchio. And I might be wrong on some of these timelines, but those were the types of players he was winning with. Simone Fontecchio, who was playing extremely well for the Utah Jazz, couldn't get on the floor with the Detroit Pistons in the playoffs right now. He couldn't get on the floor. They couldn't play him. With Will Hardy, he was an essential part of this team. They had to trade Simone Fontecchio to be able to lose games because of how good Will Hardy has been doing. And even this season, they have had to strategically rest players, because if you give Will Hardy at least a certain level of talent, he wins basketball games. Absolutely. Multiple times he has hurt my feelings with how well he has coached this Utah Jazz team. Now, another aspect of this that needs to be considered. This is where other teams are firing. The Utah Jazz are hiring. They are growing. They are building something. Will Hardy is in lockstep with what the Utah Jazz front office is doing. He is on board with the Utah Jazz plan. And he is doing the right thing. He is doing what he is supposed to. And the front office has had to adjust a lot of what they do based off of how good Will Hardy has been. It's pretty remarkable. And so what you can take from this is that this Utah Jazz front office has a plan. When they hired Will Hardy, that was the best move they did. They have a top 10, top 5 coach. And we don't even know how good he is yet because he hasn't really been given the opportunity. It's not like he's been given a top 10 player to coach. He hasn't been given one. The best he's had is like a number 38 player in Lauri Markkanen. And he turned him into an all-star when they were playing him regularly. All-star. And so what we know is that he takes what you give him and he maximizes it. That's what he does. And then he alters lineups. He's in lockstep with the front office. He tries to win games with what they put on the floor, but they have had to absolutely strip this team to the bolts so that he can lose these games, because otherwise Will Hardy wins games. Absolutely. Consistently wins games, turning Colin Sexton into a player that Utah is likely going to be able to trade this offseason. He has made and turned around what Steve Kerr messed up in Walker Kessler with his confidence, and just absolutely destroying Walker Kessler's confidence and his viewpoint of himself as a player after that USA basketball run. Will Hardy works for him and gets him back to having him be one of the top 10 centers in the NBA. High level player that they ended up having to rest as well, because what Will Hardy does is he takes these players and he coaches them incredibly well on the floor, off the floor, game management, and he wins games. And Utah has had to adjust everything they've done based off of how good he is. Now, the thing is, what happens when you give Will Hardy a top 10 player, or better yet, a top 5 player? What happens then? What happens when you give him a top 5, top 10 player, and you surround that top 10 player or top 5 player with elite role players? What happens then? What happens if you give him 2 or 3 good defenders that can shoot the ball and an MVP caliber guy? If Utah wins the lottery, gets Cooper Flagg, or if they win the lottery next year, gets like a Darren Peterson or a AJ DeBonsa or whoever, watch out, because Utah has the guy that can lead this team all the way. We know what he can do. We already know. They've just got to continue this plan, and Utah has him locked into 2031. It's 2025 right now. Utah has a consistent, strong foundation. There is nothing to worry about. You could look at other teams that are firing their coaches. Look at the Phoenix Suns. They just hired a guy, what's his name, Budenholzer, for 1 year, and then fire him. They are paying him for 4 seasons. They have hired 4 coaches in 3 years. Utah, on the other hand, is just building something. They've had to strip this thing because of how good Will Hardy's been. Now they're going to start building from the ground up with elite talent, and Will Hardy is going to be able to grow that talent year after year after year. It's great to see. All right, guys, that's all I got on this one. Like and subscribe to the channel, especially if you're a Jazz fan. I will talk to you next time.